let's talk carburation for a second. On the 2017s, KTM decided, for an unknown reason, at least unknown to me, to switch over to the Mikuni carburetor, and they decided to go up to a 38 millimeter carburetor. All the KTM 300s before this, at least since I've been paying attention, which is the last 10 years really that I've looked at the bikes, it's been a 36 millimeter Keihin carburetor. So they swapped over to this newer carburetor. Some of the guys have said they had a hard time getting them jetted properly. What I wanted to do was come out and see if I could make it run right based off some of the things that I know, some of the principles that I know on using different needles, different main jets, different idle jets, and then adjusting my fuel air screw. And I have to admit, not bragging, and maybe I just got lucky, but I got it pretty dang good on the first time. It might be running a touch rich, but it is running very good, and I don't have any complaints with the carburetor. And I know that guys are going to be like, what? Because I can't get mine to run. Well, I got mine to run. So maybe just keep playing with yours because it's not as bad as people say. In fact, it's running as good, probably better than the 2015 bike that we have with us. So I've got no complaints on that. What did you think about carburation? One thing though, it was more cold-blooded. Yeah. When we started our ride back at the truck, it was about 31 degrees, and bike did not want to stay running. I had to choke it and run it around a little bit with the choke on before I could get it to run. What were some of your thoughts on carburation?
Yeah, and ultimately, it is a little harder to start when you have to hold on to the electric start a little bit more, but not enough that it's a big deal at all. And honestly, like Kyle said, like with mine, I have a little bit of a lag is probably the best way
in the
mid-range where it doesn't have it. You can romp on the throttle and perfect, nice tractor pull, everything's there with this carburetor. So I honestly, like Kyle said, like he nailed it with the carburation, and it runs really good at our elevation and where we're riding today. So
yeah, and I've talked to the guys. I've got a pretty good relationship with the guys over at Electron Fuel Systems. As some of you guys know, I've run Electron on my other bike, and it ran phenomenal for a year, more than a year. And I may end up trying Electron on this bike. I probably will, just to see if they have something that can improve. But I'm not complaining about this carburetor. It is working fine for me. Now, this is one ride, so maybe I go to another place and maybe it starts to get finicky on me and stuff. But at least initially, no complaints on the carburetor. When I was riding this bike, I immediately started to feel that it compares a lot more closely to the YZ250X in the way that it just seems like it's carving, and the way that the front end is so agile and so nimble. It's easy to get this bike to change directions, and it wants to just lay over in corners, and it's really, really light and flickable and agile like that. And that's something that I didn't know I loved until I got onto the YZ. The YZ250X really opened my eyes to how light and agile a bike can be. But this one is creeping into that. We're gonna have to put it right against the YZ250. What do you think? What do you think we're gonna see when we compare it to the YZ250X? Which one do you think is gonna feel better?
Yeah, I have no idea, honestly, because that's the hard part when you're comparing it to the 2015 versus the 2016. Both the YZ and this one felt a lot more nimbler. Calling it where you feel like you could feel the weight loss, the weight difference, you don't really feel the weight difference, but you just feel the more balance of the bike. Like you say, when you're gonna dive into a corner, it just feels like more of a mountain bike type feel, where it just nice and smooth instead of kind of like really heavy leaning into it. But ultimately, I'm really excited to see, because I'm actually kind of shocked. But like I mentioned earlier, is this felt like the YZ to me. Like I was immediately thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to be as nimble as the YZ. Like we said, we won't know until we get them back to back, but that was my immediate response. It felt more comparable to the YZ than it did my 2015 KTM.
Yeah, and the cool thing about that is if there was two, I haven't actually put out the full-on review of the YZ250X yet. I don't know when this video is going to come out in comparison to that, but there are there are probably three things that I like to change about the YZ250X, and the first is the hydraulic clutch. I miss having the hydraulic clutch on the YZ250X, and this has it. The second thing on the YZ250X is I miss a little bit of the low end. Now that could be changed maybe possibly with gearing the YZ down just slightly.
Or a bigger flywheel or something like that.
Yeah, but I miss just a little bit. I would like a little bit more low end grunt on the YZ250X. This has that. And then the last thing that my gripe with the YZ250X is it doesn't have electric start. This has it. So the three gripes that I've got with the YZ, with the blue bike, this bike addresses those. Whether or not this eclipses that in its handling characteristics, we don't yet know, and we won't know until we ride them back to back multiple times. But right now, it's looking like KTM raised the bar again.
The other thing is how much does this bike weigh? Do you remember how much the Yamaha weighed? We'll have to put that in there, but I actually think the Yamaha still is a little bit lighter.
Honestly, I don't trust. I trust almost nothing on the KTM site right now because Sam and I follow the KTM site a lot, and the KTM guys are not running that site. They must be outsourcing it because they have tons of information that is outright blatantly wrong. They say for this bike that the motor didn't even change. They're like, oh, other than like graphics improvements, nothing has changed on the 2017s, which is BS. The motor is completely different. So I don't trust what they say on the weight on this thing. We're going to have to take them to an actual freight scale, which we think we know where one is in the area where we live, and we're going to have to put these bikes on scales to find out how much they weigh, really.
Yeah, but as far as just them feeling similar, like, gets us incredibly excited because it just, like, because everyone talks about the front forks on the Yamaha and how good they are. Then they really are really good. But these ones, honestly, I felt like they were as good as the Yamahas. So I'm really excited to pit them against each other. They both feel really light and nimble, way lighter and more nimble than the older models, the 16s and the 15s. But we'll see.
Thanks for watching, guys. I've got more coming out on this bike. We're going to be comparing it to the 2017 YZ250X, as well as just a bunch more riding videos. If you like what we're doing on the channel, please remember to like these videos, subscribe to the channel, and go over to dirtbikechannel.com/parts. We have some affiliate links that you can use that would help support us. So thanks for tuning in, guys.